Record. Okay, we're
Oh,
good.
there we go.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome, everyone. So glad to have you here. I am so excited to talk about my favorite subject, houses, real estate design. So I'm Anya, your house coach, and I've been in the staging industry for about 15 years. And then now I have also added a house coach under my name, which is into design, energy clearing, and definitely getting people to love making money for themselves. And I am so excited to have the lovely Deanna. Deanna, can you give us a little introduction about what you do and your title?
Yes, my name is Deanna Lagranza. I'm a Toronto-based realtor, and we sell real estate all over Toronto and the GTA with a true specialty in Toronto, downtown Toronto and the West End. So we know the West End of the city. We love it. We all live here. I'm with a very boutique brokerage, and we are very client service driven. We're focused on handholding everybody through every step of the real estate process, because we also understand that for a lot of people, it could either be your first time selling a house, or it could be 20 years since you've sold a house and you could just forget. Things have changed a lot. There's a lot of new technology. So at our brokerage, we're just very client driven, and we're not only focused on helping you get the most amount of money for your home, but we're also focused on helping you get ready as stress-free as possible so that the whole experience can be great for you. So, and we're based out of Bloor West Village, but I myself live in South Etobicoke and practice all over the GTA with a focus on Toronto and the West End.
Wonderful. And Deanna and I we are connected also through another association, and that is the Happy Healthy Women, which is actually Canada-wide under the umbrella and CEO of Natalie. And we are both trailblazers in two different parts of the GTA. And Deanna, you are in the Etobicoke, correct? And I'm in the Far West. And so through this wonderful group of like-minded people and women, we connected because we do have that love, which we talked about, houses, and we definitely enjoy people, and we want the best for people to prosper and have the most that's possible out there. So that's why we decided to get together and talk about redefining real estate. And I believe the reason that we've come up with that is because that as real estate and as the economy changes throughout, and other things change, there's always the oh yes, it's a possibility, and there's the oh, it's not the right time or anything like that. And so we thought this would be a great opportunity in 2020 to talk about how there are possibilities. And so let's kind of talk a little bit about the psychology of it. And we're going to really get into the buyer portion of it and then the seller portion of it as well, because this is for everybody. So the buyers, people who are looking at buying property, what would you say are some blocks?
Well,
and I ask you that, Deanna, because when you are walking around with your clientele, generically, there might be two or three things that spring out to you that you might want to say, guys, don't sweat the small stuff, get to the bigger picture. And we all have blocks in different categories. We're talking about real estate. What is it that you might see?
okay, so Anya, we discussed this prior to the call. You made a very good point that they're with one of life's most stressful events. So in my training and in everything that I see, you were bang on with that. But one of life's most exciting events is house hunting. So people love the search. So it all sounds really great, but one thing that people get a lot of caught up in is the media, and how expensive housing is and how expensive Toronto is. So I think right away, hand in hand with one of life's most exciting things is this fear that that real estate's too expensive or that it's impossible. And I'm here to tell you that it's not impossible, and Anya will say the same thing. Yes, Toronto is expensive and it is going up, but the best time to buy real estate was, if not 10 years ago, is today. So there's always an opportunity if you can get creative to get into the real estate market. So it just, you've got to remove the block and the fear that real estate is scary, and just start reframing how you think about real estate, and redefining your mindset, really, because that's what it's all about, because it is exciting. And there are realtors there out there that are very intimidating, but there's also a lot of really good ones out there that are willing to help you and handhold you, and they understand that you don't know everything. We don't even know everything, so we're always learning. And part of the exciting process of house hunting is being in it together, and it's a really collaborative thing, and it does, there's a lot of trust that happens, and a lot of guidance. So our job is to guide you, not to pressure you. And I think if you're in a relationship with a realtor who is high pressure, that also acts as a block, because there's just so many fears out there in something that shouldn't be so scary, even though, of course, it is your biggest investment. So it is scary.
Yeah, that's great. And from a perspective, because my background, obviously, as I mentioned in the beginning, is the design element. And from that design element, I can always see past. And I think one of the blocks that I can contribute from myself, and I will even talk about the personal part of it. We are sitting actually in the kitchen of the first floor of my home. And, you know, we all always have a budget, and that's always, I find, is extremely important. So, you know, I had a budget, and there was a certain particular community I want to move in. My children were very young at the time. And this particular house actually sits in a great part of the Toronto High Park area. However, it is across the street from the subway station, and it was a diamond in the rough. So it is about going past and seeing what you are capable of. Now, I happen to be married to, you know, a handyman, you know, part-timer and stuff like that. So we could kind of see things a little bit more. But I invite you to do that as well, because a house, and it doesn't even matter if it's brand new, there's always changes that are to be made. But with this particular house that I'm living in, and you can see sort of from the back, this is the kitchen, the dining room, and then there's the hallway back there, is that within the 20 years that we were living here, we have made, you know, changes bit by bit by bit. So one of the blocks is that, from my point of view, is kind of think outside and say, okay, it doesn't have to look like this forever. There could be some changes, that design changes that you can make. And once you actually buy a property, then you know, once you put some money into it, you'll be able to recoup some, even if you want to take some money out to do like a mini reno here and there. And you know, it's interesting what a coat of paint will do. It really changes things. So,
Yeah.
sorry?
Oh, I think that you totally hit it on the head. I've worked with a lot of buyers who walk into homes expecting what they see on HGTV in their preferred neighborhood, and it never pans out that way. So just looking beyond what you see, looking beyond the wall color, everything like that, and knowing where you're willing to make sacrifices for the larger picture. So in your case, it was being in Bloor West Village, but being close to the subway, which is actually a plus now.
A plus, yeah, this
You know,
really good luck charm. And I mean, there's a reason why we have inspections. And you know, your house might not look sexy, but if you look at the inspection report, and there's no inspection on a house that's like, you know, 100%. But if you look at it and it looks, you know, it's pretty good. And this is why, you know, Anna, working with a real estate agent is so important, because it's like, okay, there's a couple of here and there's a couple of there things. Like, I mean, this is 100-something-year home. Of course, when we bought it, we were going to get electrical stuff. However, then like the foundation is what's key. That's the stuff. Now, as well, right, Deanna? We can walk in through some homes, and I've staged properties where I've said, "Oh, for God's sakes, please, please, this is crazy," because it wasn't standing strong enough.
Right.
But it
Oh,
looked,
that's so true.
but it looked sexy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's
Totally.
really key is looking at your inspection report and understanding that. I mean, what would you say? 80, if it passes at 80, at 80, 75, because nothing is perfect. So don't even put that as a downer, but really don't allow those kind of blocks. I mean, and that's from a buyer's perspective. And let's talk about the sellers. What are like the blocks from a real estate point of view? And I'll talk about it from a staging point of view after, that you find for people who are wanting, ready, needing, all of those words of selling, the seller's view.
Oh, right. So that's a very huge one. So one key thing that happens time and time and again is, as a seller, you're emotionally attached to your house. In your eyes, it is the best house on the block. It's the best house on the neighborhood. Sellers tend to make lists of all the work they've done to make it their home, and it's not a dollar for dollar thing when you're talking resale. So you as a you as a seller might say, oh, well, I put in this pool in my backyard, and we love the pool, and it brings up the value. A lot of times, actually, a pool brings down the value because it means more work for your potential buyers. So one thing that a seller needs to distinguish in their mind is the true value of what they've put in their home, in terms of it being like marketable versus the value that they place. And those are two very, very different things. So you may place a lot of money and value on an upgrade that you did to your home, but buyers are very, they look at your house critically, and they're looking at it different, and they're seeing 5 houses in a day. And so the little upgrade you did to the bathroom with the jets in the bathtub, a buyer may not be willing to pay for that. So don't think that you're gonna, just because you spent $20,000 on a bathroom renovation, you'll get that out dollar for dollar. So do recognize that you put work into your house to make it your own, but buyers are really just looking to get the best house at the best price. And any informed buyer working with a realtor will know the math on some of that stuff. So very important to remove that block, remove the emotion from the selling as best as you can. And also another key reason to use a realtor, because as a realtor, I would never sell my own home. I have a condo that I rent out. I don't list it because I'm too emotionally invested in it. So I allow somebody else. I pay the commission just to allow someone else to do that, because in the end, they're the professional. I'm emotionally invested. I can't think with a clear head, especially if you're ever in a situation where you could lose money when you're selling. That's very emotional, and you could end up digging yourself in a bigger hole if your house sits too long because you're emotionally attached to a certain price. So, and then the other thing that Anya and I had talked about, in terms of getting your house ready for sale. So a block is, yes, the house hunt is fun, but when it becomes real, it becomes stressful. So they're usually, first you have to think about whether you want to buy first or sell first. A lot of people like to buy first because they want to know where they're going, and then the sale becomes very stressful. So from the time that you purchase to the time that you need to get your house ready for the market, you may not have a lot of time. So my advice would be to get all of your ducks in a row before you even begin looking for the house. because you can, be a homeowner within a week. And from the time that your offer goes in to the time that you're waiving and fulfilling all of your conditions, you really only have 5, max 7 business days to firm up your house purchase, which is stressful in and of itself. So if you have to now think about getting your house ready to list, you're doubling your stress in a very short period of time. So just get rid of the emotional attachment to your house. Once you know you're ready to move, just start putting all of the wheels in motion in a very practical way. Start decluttering well in advance. Start painting, doing all the little fixes. Paint, as Anya mentioned, brings you a full transformation, and also the biggest return on your investment. So get those painters in there, doing all the prep work, maybe while your house hunt is going on, or well before if you can, if you're not ready to sell first and then buy. But yeah, I can pass it over to you, Anya, about staging and all of that stuff.
Yeah, you brought some really good points. And the first point I want to make that we don't always see, and I know that this is what I was talking about with homeowners who are getting ready to go on the market. I might have had some areas that I was pretty firm on. And I'm trying to think of some concrete examples. Something doesn't really come to me right now. But they would feel really nervous about something, and they wouldn't want to make that change. I'll give you an example. So we are in a very simplistic time period now. Things are much more of a lighter and brighter color. Okay, you can see some white in my background, but I still have that dining room, which is that area there that's a darker color. So a big piece that people really love is that brightness hallway. So many times I've walked in, and yes, we definitely go with a very simple palette of color. It's got to be neutral, because we're creating a love for the widest possible audience. That's why it's called neutralizing. So painting out the staircase that's wooden into sort of a white, people are like, no, no, no. And so the people who have said, Anya, okay, whatever you say, I trust you. Everything goes nice and smooth. But when you are a little nervous and you start bringing that distrust, this is the energy component that I want to talk about. Is I then will tell the homeowner and say, listen, we're not doing it, because if that feeling comes into place of that negative energy, that's going to come out somehow. So that's a really important thing for you to know, which what Deanna's saying is that you've made the decision that you're going to sell. It's called, you have to start feeling the trust and believing. And is it stressful? Absolutely. Selling your house is one of the top stresses. Under the top 5, and I'm going to talk about, it's in the category of death, and it's in the category of public speaking. It's stressful. It's change. Change is hard. So, when you're working with experts such as ourselves, we get that, because I'm only surrounded by people when they're selling under stress. And so Deanna is as well. So, we get that component. So remember the energy part of it. The other thing that Deanna talked about is, you might think, oh, you know what? I got to put in a brand new kitchen, because this kitchen is, we'll talk about, I'm not going to move things around now in terms of lack of time and stuff like that. But you know what? What is the return on investment? I might say to you, you know what? You got to get the baseboards painted, and baseboards need to, like, the cleanliness is number 1. So it's things like that. And so again, that's where your expertise, whoever is on your team, will tell you what to do. Earlier than later is better. This interview here that's going on today is happening in February. I get called the first week of January, and I'm sure you do as well, Deanna. And it's not, people think it's time to sell in March. You don't want to be out with the general population. You want to be out before. So getting ready, just like anything else, you want to be prepared if you're going on a holiday. Preparation is key. Even if you have your house ready and maybe you haven't sold right away, bought right away, at least it is ready and it's ready to go. So those are really key things that I find that, sometimes sellers just they're it's not that it's not that they don't understand it, but once you've kind of made that commitment, the game starts to move really fast, really fast.
Yeah.
And I find sometimes people tend to put some other crazy things in their life, like they just had a baby, there's a wedding to be planned. Like, I mean, I've had clients, and it's like, really?
Everything at once.
Yeah, everything at once. So
Yeah.
I want to go into a little deeper into sort of our whys and our stories and why we're so passionate, and why we love what we do. So let me start by you, Deanna. Can you, and it's about the, obviously the real estate world and everything like that. So maybe you can tell us how you started.
Of course. So my real estate journey started well before I was a realtor. I just finished university. I got my first job. I was living downtown Toronto, and I had loads of debt, student debt, and 2 maxed out credit cards, because at university they have the banks there on campus giving out water bottles and credit cards. So, so I did all of that, but I realized that rents were high downtown, and that I could pretty much own a condo for the same amount that I was renting, and the same holds to rents are going up exponentially with the population increase, and so there's a lot of similarities between then and now, even though that was 10 years ago. But I decided I wanted to buy a condo, but I had debt, I had no money, I did not really have a clue. So of course, the first thing to do was ask my friend who had a realtor who her realtor was, and I connected with her, and I started condo hunting, and realized that on my salary, poor little me all by myself, I could barely make the cut with a resale condo. So it was in and around, but I was just a little bit out of my affordability. And so I, kept thinking and thinking and just looking. I was just open. And again, in my mind going in, I thought, well, I don't have the money. I don't have the income. I have debt. But if I just put it out there and just start, get a realtor, that's a step in the right direction. That's a step toward what I want to. And it's kind of, this was before I did a lot of reading on mindset, but I guess
want to say, please emphasize mindset, because I'm writing that down. That is a huge piece.
Totally. For me, mindset was everything. And it was really before I knew anything about mindset. But in my mind, I was like, I just need to put it out there and something will happen. And so sure enough, within, I went out with the realtor twice, and probably on my third time out, I decided to a pre-construction sales center, because I remembered that an old, yeah.
Sorry, Deanna.
Can you hear me?
Somehow there was an internet connection, and you might have spoke perfectly, and I didn't hear. But this is such an important part that I need people to hear. I apologize if we are but can you explain that again, because it's this is so key what you're saying, this part here right now. So please, I apologize.
Yeah. So I don't know where it cut out.
Okay. So it maybe back up just a little bit before pre-construction. So
okay. So I had been out twice with my realtor. Prices were at the time about 10 to 15,000 out of what I had envisioned as my perfect price point, maybe 20,000 at the time, and the amount that I could even get approved for. So I
does that mean 20,000 down or 20?
No, just 20,000 purchase price.
Okay.
So I was pre-approved at a low price range at the time, given my salary, and condos at the time now seem low, but it was a lot to me. So it was about 20,000 outside for the resale market, of what I could afford in the areas that I wanted.
But sorry, I have to apologize. The price of the condo was what price?
Okay, so I was in my mind looking in around the $250,000
Yes. Okay.
range.
Yes.
And then the reality, I started looking, they were upwards of 270, 280, all the way up to three. And so, of course, my realtor, knowing the market, was kind of giving me a bit of a reality check. But
Right.
I was strapped, like
Yeah.
I couldn't afford that. So um, I ended up kind of thinking outside the box instead of looking in King West, which was on the rise at the time. I always really liked the east end of the city. And by east end, I mean a block or two east of Yonge Street. Like, we're not talking crazy, but nobody wanted to live there. So I had remembered that a gas station was coming down, and I thought, I think they're building a condo. Sure enough, I found the sales center and I ran on over there. And within that weekend, I purchased a condo. So, and just to back up a little bit, people also don't know that realtors can help with pre construction. In fact, it's an area that I love. I did actually was able to include my realtor on that deal. So even though she didn't accompany me, I put her name on the transaction, and she was able to kind of be part of that. So I didn't feel like I cheated her of her work. So, but at the time, I was able to purchase a pre-construction condo for just about 10% under market value, current market values of resale. And what was key in that process wasn't really the purchase price so much as the deposit structure. Pre-construction allows you to pay in increments of about 5% over 1 to 2 years of your down payment. So in my case, as I mentioned, I had a lot of debt and I had very little savings. So I blogged about it, and I'll give you the link at the end of this. You can read my story. But I had
It's
at
a
the
beautiful
time,
story.
yeah, I had $5,000 that I knew of when I signed my agreement to purchase and sale. I had um, over 21,500 in debt, probably about 25,000 or more in debt at the time, and I had no idea how I was going to come up with the full 15% down payment. So I did. It took me a year. I got really creative. I'll save the details, but you can read about it in my blog.
A must.
It
A must.
all worked out, and I'm here to tell you that not only did I buy the condo, but I have since turned it into an investment property, and we still own it. And the rent from the time that it closed to today has doubled. So the purchase price was the same. Rents have gone up, and each time a tenant leaves, you just adjust the rent to market rate. So it's now bringing us a pretty decent income. I just bought skis with it, thanks to the condo. So the point here is that it was scary, and it was risk. I guess you'd call it risky. I'm not an advocate of putting yourself in danger by any means, but I am an advocate of um, putting things out there and putting the energy when you really, really want something, because you'll surprise yourself at how you can find ways to make something happen. And the best part is 10 years later, looking back and not only saying you did it, but having actually something that is bringing you money, and that is like I now own a piece of downtown for my children. So that was really important to me. So
Yeah, and it's not that everybody is going to go.
that's my intro story. From then on, it just
Okay, sorry, there was a disconnection. That is your why, and sorry, Deanna. Okay, sorry, there was a disconnection twice. And anybody who's listening, that is Deanna's why, and your why is different. And who you are and where you are in your life is different. So it's not about comparing and saying, well, I'm not there. The whole reason for you sharing is for you to show people that the possibilities are there. And you just have to sort of, I don't know, I can say the word creative or whatever other words. So my background story is, prior to being with my husband of 35 years, and I was young. I mean, I didn't really even sort of think real estate. But at 24, we bought a property. Now we bought it. It was four of us, so it was with his sister and her partner, and Ray and myself. We didn't know anything. And I know when you say nowadays, you might say 24, oh my God, are you crazy? Well, let's not worry about the age, but that's just my story. And we did it too fast without thinking about anything, but we got into the game. And we got into game in a neighborhood that wasn't moving. Now, that neighborhood might be moving now because real estate in Toronto, it doesn't matter what neighborhood is moving, but it wasn't moving at all. And we had people who stayed in there that paid the mortgage, so we rented out two parts of it. And then when we moved in, one part of the family member did not, go in the house, but it ended up that we paid them out. And when we were selling, we made a whole bunch of changes in the house. It looked 100 times better than it did. However, we didn't have, and I'm not faulting the agent, it just, the price was not right. And so it sat on the market. So we bought it at 189. It's on the market for 165, so depreciated. And at that time, the rates were 11 and 3/4 interest. So that's how much money every month was going towards the interest, and a small part was going to the mortgage. So when we sold it, after whatever it sold, we sold it at 123. So, I mean, at one point, one might say, you know what, we're not selling. There's no way we're not selling because we're losing all this money. So that's kind of where you have to make this big decisions. Like Deanna, she's like, okay, I've got all of this amount in debt, but I'm going to put this in a pre-construction. And so we did what we did. We bought this house. I talked about it in the beginning. The price was low, and it was, a diamond in the rough. But now where I'm at, I never would envision that I am. And I had to actually say to myself, oh my God, I'm an investor, because I have another investment property, and then I just got another investment property. So, I mean, you don't really know what the possibilities are. But you don't want to, I guess, I guess, no, I shouldn't be saying that part. I was going to say put all your eggs in one basket. That doesn't really make sense in a way. But I guess just not really knowing what the end result can be, and kind of getting that naysayer out. But, who would think 11 and 3/4 these days of interest? Like, really? But that was the way it was. And many of you might even hear that, and you're listening to this, a video from other parts of the world. So absolutely. But the key again is the mindset. It's the mindset of what is possible. In this particular house, when we bought it, we didn't ask for the size. It was a 5-bedroom. We had international students live with us, and they helped pay for, running to Home Depot every other day. So so there's like, there's the give and take to all of this as well. So that's why it was really crucial for you to hear our story and our background and where we came from. And so now I want to dive into sort of the title of our video, our call. And we've touched upon quite a bit of it too, which is, redefining your goal. And I guess a lot with what we have shared from where we've come from, and who our clients, who we've serviced, that we can see. We really want to talk about, how can money make money for you? Where can you start buying? When can you start, or when do you want to sell? Like all of that. So, do you want to jump into that, Deanna?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, talking about redefining, um, really means redefining your goal in real estate. So, on another like similar note to Anya, we also bought our house, which I'm also in right now, in a crummy part of town at the time, and it was also a diamond in the rough. So, when we went out house hunting, we were in for a shock. We were in for, 7 years ago, prices were on the rise in Toronto as well, and we looked at the desirable areas like the beach and Bloor West Village, and at our stage, it was just not an option. So we revisited our location. We knew we wanted to be in close proximity to Toronto, but even still, the HGTV show home that you see was also out of reach for us. So, I mean, it wasn't even really that, not only was it expensive, but it also didn't give us what we wanted, which was important to us. To us, it was really important to be close to Toronto by GO train, to be close to the lake, um, to have a backyard, have a garage. So when you're redefining your goals or setting your goals, make a list and think about what is kind of where you don't waver, and don't think cosmetic, because cosmetic can change. I myself and Anya are both proof of that. We tore our entire house apart and we're still going. So anything cosmetic that you see can change. And my husband also says again and again, when I'm showing properties for clients that they're not, aren't their dream, they don't think are their dream homes. He always says, it's just a house. You make it a home. And Anya, people like Anya can come in and they can decorate. And even if you don't tear the walls apart, paint, decor, can create a space inside a house that makes it look very different from the house that you went through on your first visit. So, define what's really, really important to you with a long-term goal in mind. And when I say long-term, we're not talking 5 years, think 25 years. You may not live there for 25 years, but think that way. Think, um, will this house work for you in 25 years? Or what is your 25-year goal? And if your 25-year goal is not to stay in this house, think about how that house can bring you closer to your 25-year goal. So, your kitchen may not have the perfect island or the built-in all wall ovens, all of that stuff. When you're looking at a house, just be very open and think: can you either put it in? Can you extend off the back? Can you reconfigure? Can IKEA provide a solution? Can you call a professional designer or decorator in like Anya to come in and give you ideas that you never thought of? Because the value that you'll lose during a year-long house hunt far outweighs the cost to you to adjust. So, just in this year alone, when I was looking at the market stats for 2019, I did a serious double take because um, the housing prices. So the average detached home in Toronto in 2018 by the end of the year was around 1.15 million. So 1,145,000, call it. The average price of a detached home at the end of December 2019 what came in, and I'm looking at it right now, right from the Toronto Real Estate Board, 1,363,000. So that's over $200,000 in market value in the course of a year. So just when you're in that house today, think about what that price tag will look like at the end of the year. How much less you can get for the same amount of money by the end. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball. Projections are Toronto's going to keep going up, but don't lose sight of the bigger picture because you're wrapped up in some of the small things because you could miss the boat completely in your neighborhood, the things that really are unchangeable in that matter, or the stepping stone that will take you to the next step. So um, when you're defining your goals, make a must-have list and a would-be nice list, and know where you can sacrifice for the bigger picture.
Yes. And just with everything that Deanna has just said, is that um, I can't remember what we talked about this before, but I guess maybe perfection is maybe the part that I want to kind of bring in. I mean, I have a couple of areas that I want to give examples to this, but focus on the happy part. And I mean, I'll just give an example for myself. Again, I'm not going to move but many of you have seen my videos on my kitchen and everything like that. My kitchen is not brand new. Part of it was the existing kitchen, and so it wasn't in the budget. But what was in the budget? Okay, let's get a stellar color. This color came out 20 years ago in my kitchen. So farmhouse green is been in this kitchen. So don't start putting any blocks and stops. Focus on the happy part, and that's kind of what Deanna and I were talking about as well. Have fun, be in that in that great appreciative, that happy, that abundance. That's the word I want to say about that. I mean, it might sound a little wonky to some of you who are listening, but you know what, that changes the whole feeling of it. Enjoy your space, enjoy looking at places, and I guess also, quote unquote, think outside the box. I mentioned that I had no intention of a 5-bedroom. I just wanted it in a neighborhood because I had kids for the school. But then, you know what? We got students. Now, it might not be for everybody. They did have breakfast with us in the morning when we had breakfast. Or, income properties. Think about, I don't know, what do I want to say? Like 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, we have ancestors who've come, and we can talk about Europe as well, that have come, and they came with very little money. And, within time, they were able to buy a piece of property. So yes, what's the block right now? We're in 2020. What's the block? Oh my God, 1.3. We just heard the stats. But what else is possible? Can you buy something that's on like the GO train line that is further outside of the city? Doesn't mean maybe you're going to live in it. The possibilities and all of that they're huge. And when you're again, when you are with a expert, they're the ones that can show you all that. That it doesn't just have to be sort of like, this is it, and I want everything perfect and spanking brand new. And sometimes we can do that, and sometimes we can't do that. So I want to ask you, this question came out. I mean, I talked about income property. If you buy a house, get an apartment inside, you don't have to live in the whole space. I talked about putting in Airbnb. Mind you, there is things going on right now, so that might not be the biggest thing. The income property might be. What would you say on like with a condominium, and your income is really low, but getting like a studio condominium, not a 1-bedroom, but a studio condominium? What would you say to that, Deanna?
100%. The city is getting, like, living space in the city is getting smaller. Also, with the influx of international people coming to the city, people aren't used to, in big cities, as much space as we are. A lot of people from Hong Kong or China, you know, anywhere else, Manhattan, they're all used to smaller spaces, and builders are building studios. So don't think that you have to have a 1+1, 1-bedroom plus den at the heart of Yonge and Eglinton, because you will pay for that. Um, when you're thinking thinking about moving or doing something a little bit outside the box, you need to make sure all of your boxes are checked. So with smaller spaces, like smaller condos, if you're going to live there, it's not an issue, but smaller spaces are also think about a condo. You live,
Okay,
you
good.
live, are we good?
Yes.
You live in the city. Your condo is just one picture of your living space. So it's
Yes.
just, again, redefining your living space if you want to be downtown. Condos have amenities, so think about that as your living space as well. Your city is the home, and your condo is where you sleep. And without a doubt, a small space is also very rentable. Up there with being the most rentable down the road. So if you did end up keeping it, you should have no problem renting it out. So just knowing the facts, redefining your idea just to get yourself in the market. If it means having co-owners with you or basement rentals, or I have a client who's thinking about buying. They ultimately want to live in the city, but to buy what they want land, so they may buy outside of the city and rent in the city. So then they own their land, 20 kilometers outside of Toronto, and they can use that as a rental property, and then they rent themselves. So just get creative with the way that you think about home ownership. It may not look like, the white picket fence that everyone thinks of, but it's never that way anyway. So you're best to get in the market now than to wait. And when I say that, I'm not pressure. There's no pressure there. It's just time is always of the essence. If in the course of a year prices can go up so much, you just want to do it as soon as it makes sense for you. So
Right.
yeah, just
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at New York City, or if you look at Paris, you can look at Amsterdam, and many other parts of the world. The footprint of the space that people are living in is much smaller. So Deanna has a very good point. And from a design point of view, there's many wonderful resources out there. But apartment therapy, which came through from New York, because of its spaces being smaller and smaller, is a wonderful online site where you can get amazing ideas on how you can live in a smaller space. So even if you purchase a house and you look at it and say, how is it possible for me to actually take part of it and rent it out? There is possibilities, absolutely, and that's something you obviously want to look at prior to see if you can change the hydro component into making it two different areas, like two different apartments. Or I guess I'm not saying it properly, but yeah, there's there's so much out there. And when you are, again, working with somebody who sees houses all the time, I mean, from a staging point of view, with my company Show and Sell, I was in like 5 houses a week for 15 years. I saw people and I saw their houses. I'm positive, Deanna, you see so many houses. For clients, you probably go in so many houses before you even take the client, so you even see more houses, and see the possibilities, which ones are workable and which ones aren't. I just feel like I want to bring this last part in. I do want to talk about sort of the next steps, and thank everybody for being with us. But just in case we got run out with this, where we have to be an hour, we will have our information on how to connect with us. But can you just tell us again, Deanna, how can they connect with you? And just like give them maybe your website or something, so just in case you need to write it down.
Yeah, so my company is called Page and Percival. So my website is deanna.pageandpercival.com. Yeah, I got that right, I think. And my cell and all my contact information should be on there. So again, my name is Deanna Allegranza. Page and Percival is my website, and we'll put all the contact information in the notes.
Perfect. So I want to talk about sort of getting ready wherever it is that now you are. If you are getting into wanting to be in investing, if you want to get into being the first home buyer, if you are ready to start selling and everything like that, So there's different areas. But the first thing I want to talk about is make sure you have a team, because it doesn't matter what, who you are. Like the biggest gurus, the biggest coaches, the biggest whoever, that they have a team. So this is we've given you something to like sort of start off with. But I want to ask you in particular, because we are in the time right now where we have a lot of people who are changing their sort of their work, their job, sort of the 9 to 5ers. They're going, to having like a corporate job and all of that. It's really depleting, and there's more and more people who are coming on, are entrepreneurs. They're running their own business, and I just want to talk to you about people saying, "Well, the bank isn't going to look at me." So, what, like in terms of looking for a loan, or what's the bank versus the mortgage broker? Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that again allows bigger possibilities for people, because I think people start feeling like this.
Yes, that's a very good point. So you just want to keep your options open. I always recommend starting with a mortgage broker, and because they have access to all the lenders, not just the bank, so they can get a little bit creative as well. They Mortgage brokers typically back in the day had a bit of a negative rap, just because people think that or thought that you would only go to a mortgage broker if you couldn't get a mortgage from a bank, but that is not the case. They actually work with the banks, refer a lot to the banks, but they see everything. So if you have a bit of a unique situation, they can usually either um, help you get your mortgage, or if not, set you on a plan to get a mortgage. So they'll tell you what you need, and it may not be tomorrow, but maybe in a year's time, you can find yourself in a situation where you listen to their advice and you can get a mortgage. So definitely look at all your options. Don't rule out the banks. I did have a case in the summer where the bank pulled through when a mortgage broker couldn't. So definitely keep all of your options open, and find people that you know, like, and trust. Build relationships, build a history with them. Also look, if you have parents, ask them to co-sign. There's nothing wrong with that if it gets you in the market. Um, just again, get creative, look at your situation, set your goal, and just find a way to get there, because there's usually a way if you start putting it out in the world.
I like your last suggestion too. That's again like really thinking outside. Sometimes, obviously the older generation has a little bit more of a nest egg, and it just brings me back personally to when we were 24 and young. We actually did get 2 loans. Like, one was from the bank and one was from my in-laws. And so we obviously paid them every month, but we paid them a higher interest than if they were to keep it. And now, of course, there was interest at that time in the bank, but it was like a win-win situation. So they helped us, and then we gave them a higher interest. So again, that's just like there's so many possibilities that are out there. So that is a really good suggestion.
Yeah.
So I will have to say that I thank you all so much for listening to my channel, and please subscribe if you like this. And I am so grateful, Deanna, that you have come with so much wealth of information, and I just love working with you. And you've got, you put your heart and soul into what you do, and your clients are forever grateful. Is there anything you want to say before we have to say adieu?
No, just echo all of the same sentiments. You're so wonderful. Everything that you say brings value. And for anyone watching, Anya came into my home and made a huge difference as well, in a very small space. So her expertise is just incredible. So I would highly recommend that you call her in and get her take. And I just really enjoyed being part of this, and hope that anyone watching is inspired to just take some action if they are thinking about buying property.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you all. And I'm going to